Perfect. Okay, so good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today with our Avatar Deconstructed workshop. So really today what we're going to be covering is having you stop thinking about what you want and start thinking about what your client wants. So understanding who your ideal customer actually is and how to target them across all digital platforms. So what we are going to be doing today is learning from our digital service squad that I have here, who are all experts in an interactive panel discussion. A little bit about Digital Main Street before I introduce you to our panelists. So Digital Main Street is a program and service that helps businesses achieve digital transformation. This program is built around an online learning platform, structured training programs, and a digital service squad who I have here today, who are a team of highly trained professionals, and they help businesses grow and manage their businesses through adoption of digital tools and technology. So almost think of your digital service squad as kind of your tech team behind your business. When businesses join Digital Main Street and complete the free Digital Main Street onboarding, they receive a digital assessment and recommended to-do list that identifies technologies and tools that can help their business meet their digital goals. So along with the digital assessment, they also have the opportunity to work with the digital service squad. The digital service squad work with these businesses one-on-one to activate free and easy to use tools while also providing recommendations for other technologies. So you'll learn a little bit more about their skills and their own businesses. If you have any questions towards the end about getting into contact with any of them, please reach out to the Small Business Center, and we'll also be providing all of our email addresses as well in the chat. So to start off, I am going to do a little bit of a roundtable of introductions. So Laura, if you want to go first.
Sure. Good morning, everybody. My name is Laura Bainborough. I have my own business, which is Laura Joy Photography. I've been in the photography industry since 2010, and then prior to that, I actually went to school for photography. But a big passion of mine is not only photography, but small businesses, because I myself am a small business, and I know how hard it can be. So really excited to be part of this panel and excited to be part of DMS.
Thanks, Laura. Anthony, you're next on my screen.
Good morning, everyone. As Sarah said, I'm Anthony. I'm co-founder of Talos Creative, and I'm the web SEO and brand strategy coach. Like Laura and like the other panelists here today, I also am a small business owner myself, so I can empathize with a lot of the challenges that we all face on a regular basis. So I'm really passionate about understanding the challenges that we all face, the individual and unique challenges that we all face, and I want to take that information and try to help my clients achieve their goals and be the best that they can be.
Thanks, Anthony. Shelley.
Morning, everybody. My name's Shelley Brooke. I have my own business as well called Shelley Brooke Launch Event Services. And I've been working in the online space since 2018, first as a virtual assistant and social media manager, and now as a launch event manager. And I've learned that technology and the online space is so fast-paced and ever-changing. So I really made it a priority that I continually learn and expand my skills and knowledge so that I can best serve my clients in any way possible. And I truly do believe that small and independent businesses can change our world. So it's one of my passions to be supporting them to bring their unique message and products to the whole world.
Awesome. Thanks, Shelley. And then last but not least, Marleen.
Good morning, everybody. It's Marleen Walz from Gasperis Design Studios. I entered the design field 20 years ago. Sorry, this ages me, but it's true. As I fell in love with the power of design to create connections for positive social, environmental, and business impact. There is a very strong passion at Gasperis for small, medium enterprises. And what I love being a brand coach and brand specialist is every single company I work with, I learn. And I think it's so important nowadays to be a lifelong learner, to stay up top with knowledge of technologies. And that's what I strive to give to my clients at Gasperis, as well as a digital service squad member. I strive to educate you where you need it and keep you up to pace in this fast-paced world that we live in nowadays.
Thanks, everyone. So how we're going to lay out today's panelist session is we're going to kick off with a few predetermined questions and answers, and then we'll also be monitoring the chat, the Q&A. So if you have any questions for any of our panelists, whether it be photography, web development, SEO, social media, branding, graphic design, really anything around the digital world, please don't hesitate to pop it in. We will be monitoring and answering your questions throughout. So to kick it off, you hear all the time about the avatar, and it's not just the blue people from the movie a while back, but it's this technology almost voice that you're supposed to be targeting to and basing everything off of. So in terms of persona and avatars, Anthony, we'll start with you. How do you define your customer avatar?
Thanks, Sarah. So yeah, there's a excuse me. Oh God, I'm a little hoarse this morning. Sorry about that. Yeah, there's a few different ways that you can do it, but the best way that I always try to think about is trying to understand exactly who your customer is, in that you actually want to build a profile of this person to the point where you're literally naming this avatar, determining what their marital status is, what their job is, what their salary is. These are huge pieces into understanding who the market is that you're really trying to go after, and where you're going to be able to find these people. You'll really dive down into even bigger components where you're getting into their interests, their motivations, their frustrations. Who do they watch? Who are they influenced by? By kind of putting your mind and creating this person and really immersing yourself in this customer that you want to attract, you can start to also identify the most important piece of where are you going to find them. You'll be able to see kind of where are they going to see maybe your ad placement or your marketing strategies. This goes a long way into identifying kind of what platforms to look at, especially when you're looking at the online world.
Oh, Sarah, you're muted.
Yep, muted. I'm sure this will not be the last time today that happens. So what happens if I have multiple kind of streams within my business? So say I have a videography business and I target weddings and kind of that event side, but also I do commercials and work with different businesses to promote their products and services. So what happens then if I'm targeting multiple demographics?
I can take this one. So I have a similar kind of structure to my business where I have a number of different genres of photography that I'm doing. And nobody wants to hear this, but the best thing to do is really, really niche down. And like we're going to talk about today, really niching down your avatar and really having in mind who your prime customer is. Just a short story that I think helps with this. So I do mini sessions every year. And this year I did a mini session. It was a fall mini session, beautiful in a barn, very classic autumn setup. And I also am a big Harry Potter fan. So I thought, well, wouldn't it be funny if I just put together like a little Harry Potter setup just around Halloween, just in case I happen to get a couple people interested, because I'm really interested in it. I didn't really think it would do that well. I was like, oh, this is too niche. It's so bizarre, but maybe I'll just throw it out there. I ended up booking more Harry Potter mini sessions than the classic autumn mini sessions. And I think that's just because it was so niche that I was directly talking to the people who loved Harry Potter. There wasn't anything else like that out here, and people really wanted to jump on the opportunity, versus the autumn, which, everyone loves autumn. I wasn't really speaking to anybody specifically. So I think I learned a big lesson there, that you really cannot niche down enough. Obviously, you're going to take other people on, and you're not going to turn people away at the door, but definitely recognizing that that's not a bad thing if you're really niching down. And then just also, if you do have multiple businesses or different aspects of your businesses, sometimes the best thing to do is actually have 2 different accounts for 2 different things and servicing different avatars.
Great. And then Marleen, you had a comment on this as well. And I know this also speaks to you.
Yes, that is correct. So as a branding coach, I ask you, if you're going to create 5 different avatars, you're going to talk about 5 different groups of people that you want to target. How much money do you have for this? How much time are you going to set apart? To be honest, I think per avatar, like it is a realistic goal that's going to cost you $20,000. Okay, so let's say you have 5. So that's $20,000 times 5. This is like your hours, the work that goes into it, because these are costs. And it might not be like persona number 5 might just be an afterthought and only make you XYZ amount of money. So think about that. Who is your client? Who is, I always call them Sue or whatever name, like come up with a name, make them realistic, talk to them. But that is the crux with making too broad. Don't spread yourself thin. Like Laura said, niche yourself and talk to that audience, because those are your customers. That is where your brand speaks to. And just be aware that every single avatar is also costing you money.
Perfect. Yeah. And I know no business owner wants to turn business away, but sometimes that we found when you're, as you guys have all said, when you're marketing to everyone, sometimes you just aren't hitting the right people and you're not actually bringing in clients. So like you said, Laura, with your story, when you actually start to kind of narrow it down, you'll be surprised that you've kind of hit it in that correct spot, and you're actually starting to bring in more customers than say if you were marketing to the entire Barrie area. So really interesting. This is kind of for all of our panelists. So how does knowing your customer avatar impact your branding, social media, website, and/or photography? So more so in terms of that, I guess that voice of now you have it. So how does that actually affect your digital presence?
I'll jump in on that one. So when you're creating social media, let's talk about social media for a second. You want to make sure that you have the right voice to speak to your ideal client. And if you're finding that like your social media really isn't hitting home, you're not getting the likes, you're not getting the comments, like there doesn't seem to be engagement, it's because you're not speaking to someone in particular. You're not hitting them here. You're not scroll stopping them. And that's because you're not speaking their language. And you're not telling stories that hit home for them. You're not using words that they recognize. And if you're just trying to speak to everybody, it's just this blanket statement you're making and nobody's emotionally connecting to it. So then nobody engages with it. So I think that like it truly impacts how your social media presence shows up if you know who you're speaking to.
Perfect. And then Anthony, for the website, in terms of your kind of avatar persona, how should you be laying that out? And are there any kind of key messaging that you want to put? How should that be kind of laid out? Because obviously COVID-19, there was that large shift to online. So now everyone has a website, everyone has a social media presence. So how do you kind of make your website stand out so you're actually attracting the right target market?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, I mean, for web, there's so many different pieces that understanding your avatar can certainly help with. But I think one thing that will definitely go a long way, especially in your messaging, is that first message that you see when you land on the site. A lot of times people try to say, this is what we do. We are, widget company ABC and we sell this and we're awesome, but you're not really solving a problem for the customer. So the first message on the site should almost be, what is the problem you solve for them? So excuse me. So when you're doing that and you're trying to define that, it does certainly help to try to figure out what your value proposition is or what the customer's pain points are. I know we're sending documents out or have already sent documents out in terms of trying to figure out what the customer or the value proposition is for your company. And the first thing you want to do is determine, your wants, the customer's wants, the customer's pains, and the customer's gains. When you can figure those things out, you can start to narrow down what is the main problem that you're going to solve for your customer. And that's what you want to lead with. That's what's going to keep people coming back. They're not necessarily worried about what it is that you do to solve that problem, but they just want that problem solved. So in terms of messaging on the website, knowing what that problem is that you solve is a huge component to keep people engaged and keep people going. The other aspect of understanding who your avatar is you can understand the functionality that goes behind the website a lot more. If you have an older demographic, then you need to use things like bigger fonts and keep things really, really simple, traditional menus, things like that. If you have a younger demographic, you can get away with the new kind of like hamburger style menu, if you will, and not have more complexity, but you can get away with a little bit of different behaviors that a user would be typically using at those different demographics. So, understanding those pieces are extremely important for laying out the website and as a whole.
Perfect. Yeah, as I said at the beginning of the avatar conversation, it's definitely a piece that's not going away anytime soon. It's here to stay. And what we found as well is the Barrie Public Library, for anyone that's kind of looking into more of a deep dive around those demographics. They are a great resource as well. They have lots of free online tools that can really narrow down who it is within that geographic area you're looking at targeting, in terms of kind of their annual income that they're making, the age range. So all of those great topics that when you are looking, as all of our panelists have said, of kind of creating that person that you're talking to within all of your content, that's a great resource for you. So moving on to a little bit of a different topic, and everyone please feel free, if you have any questions that are outside of the topics that we're going on, please put them in the chat or the Q&A and we'll definitely get to them. But moving on to finding your digital voice. So as I said, everyone now is on social media. Everyone has an online presence, and it is necessary in order to basically survive now. So finding your digital voice is key in the world of small business owners. So Marleen and Anthony, I'm going to kind of direct this first one at you. How do you define your brand's personality, characteristics, and voice?
I'm looking at Anthony. You go first, Anthony. I'll take it after.
Okay. So yeah, it goes a lot into, I think, what I just said in the last question, in terms of understanding the value that you bring and the value proposition that you bring and the problems that you solve for your customer. You can also do that by, once you identify your avatar, you can understand a better way of how to speak to your customer. So when you're putting together kind of the personality that you want to bring your brand to life, I always say that a business is not just a brick and mortar building, it's a person. There's people behind it, there's people that run it. So you want to bring that brand, you want to bring that to life. And you can do that by understanding your avatar more and understanding what their interests are, how to speak to them when they come in. So let's say you identify your avatar as people that are very outdoorsy and like camping and hunting and things like that. And maybe there's a way that you can connect with them that way when they walk into your office. Understanding their motivations and things like that as well will certainly go a long way into help developing the voice that comes along with it and the personality that you want to bring to the business that you run.
All right, I'll take it from there. So I'm not going to add on to that. That was awesome, Anthony. So simply put, it's a personality and an emotion which you infuse into your company communication. All right. I always love Seth Godin. I don't know if any of you know him, but he is like the brand guru. And he says a brand value is merely the sum total of how much extra people will pay or how often they choose the expectations, memories, stories, and relationships of one brand over the alternative. That is what is going to set you apart. Okay. If you truly want to build a brand, what is this emotional add-on? How do you trigger this perception? And also one thing that Anthony and I love talking about is the numbers, okay? There's a fixation about numbers nowadays, and a lot of the old-fashioned marketeers, they don't even look at it. They say it's a gut feeling. We can't do that anymore, okay? So always track, like create a narrative to set apart your unique story, but track the numbers. Is it working, yes or no? Do I need to change tactics?
And Marleen, when you talk about numbers, what exactly are those numbers? Are those the number of followers that you have, or the engagement of people kind of clicking on your posts? What are those numbers that a small business should be looking at?
All right, can I start with a little fun fact?
Go for it.
All right, so fun fact, okay? And this is the core branding, which I love. American research shows that in 2000, Fortune 500's price point was 84 immaterial activity. Okay, that means 84% hardcore branding. Why are you buying this brand over that brand? Okay, so this is why the persona is so important. And you have to set apart how you want to pinpoint these perceptions. And you can ask yourself, for example, how can I measure this? Every business will be a little bit different. If you talk to the digital service squad, we will all say, put Google Analytics on your website, track those numbers. If you ask Shelly, right? Shelly, you have all kinds of systems for your social media marketing. Okay, so you set targets for yourself. I always work in goals and milestones. A goal is a hardcore number. In 5 years, I want X, Y, Z. My milestone in 3 months has to be this. And that's something that you can literally tick off, okay? Secondly, you should ask yourself, what do I need to know about persona 1? Let's call her Sue. Then you ask yourself, from all this data that I'm generating, so you're talking social media, you're talking website. If you have a brick and mortar shop, that is also something that can be tracked, okay? Customer engagement. Always say, what can I conclude from this data? Don't just look at the numbers like, oh, we're going up, we're good, hands off. How can I improve? How can I grow? And that should also be, and every single company, it will be different statistics. But just a couple of little things here and there make a big, big difference, and track that data and use it for your good.
And I like the idea as well of the goals and milestones as well, because it's not something, if you're having a 1, 2 year, 5 year goal, you can forget about it. So having those milestones really keeps you on track as well, which I do appreciate. Laura, question for you. So whenever anyone thinks about digital voice, automatically you think about content, you think about words, but you don't think about the imaging, and that really has a strong effect as well. I mean, you've heard the saying, a picture tells 1,000 words. So is it better to use professional or stock photography to communicate your digital voice, and why?
So I think the answer to this is kind of both. I know, so if I think of myself as a consumer and I'm the right age to be on Instagram, that's where I see a lot of the businesses that I'm interacting with. So if I'm scrolling on Instagram and I see something and go, oh, I wonder what that is, and I click on their profile. If I see all stock imagery, I immediately go, oh, this is a fake business. This is a bot. This is not a real person. They don't have dreams. They don't have goals. This is somebody running this somewhere that I don't know or care about. So stock photography can be great because it can be very specific, especially if you're trying to convey a specific message. Much to Shelly, she'll talk about this too, like with your words and stuff, and you need something to support that. Sometimes you're not going to have that at your disposal, so sometimes searching through stock photography will help with that. In terms of having professional photography, so I think when you say that, you mean having photos of your actual business, like have photos that you've had a professional take pictures of your business, and sharing those throughout. That's going to help a lot because it's going to show people that you've invested in yourself and that you take yourself seriously, and kind of seem a little maybe bigger than you might be at that point. And people also want to see who's behind the business. So sometimes if you yourself are the photographer, you're not necessarily including yourself in any of the photos, and people are going to, once again, look on the grid and go, okay, who is this? Who is this person? Do I connect with them? Do I care? Do I want to support their business? So basically, to sum that up, you can use both. Of course, you can also take your own photos, and just keeping in mind, you know, your avatar, what is the aesthetic of that avatar? So if my company is, say I do organic cleaning, so I have like, you know, cleaning solutions and they're all organic, that person is likely going to care that obviously there's no chemicals, so they're more organic, they might be more outdoorsy. So maybe an outdoorsy or clean or simple aesthetic would be good to take through your imagery, because that's going to convey simplicity. It's going to convey that there's not all this extra stuff, right? Or maybe using organic tones in your photos, right? So these kinds of things, they clue in, they sort of subconsciously take over your consumer. And especially if you're landing on a grid and you can see all of these photos together, they're going to understand right away.
Awesome. I love thinking about the aesthetic, because that is such a thing that when you go onto someone's social media right away, that's the first thing that you can kind of see if everything is consistent, if it's following this type of pattern. So that's awesome. That's great advice. Shelley, on the flip side, so going back to that kind of actual messaging and content, how does understanding your digital voice assist with content creation?
Well, it makes it a whole lot easier, for one. So first of all, understanding your avatar and the voice that they use and who they are. So are they a millennial, or are they a boomer? And are they an outdoorsy person, earthy, or a little bit more of high end and they like to shop at high end stores? What kind of vocabulary do they use? And then you want to take that and you want to transfer that over to the voice that you're using online, in writing your social media posts, in creating blog posts, creating resources. So really, it goes back to that avatar again, really understanding who they are. I know I always suggest to my clients to do interviews of their actual ideal clients, whether they're currently your clients or they're someone who like meets the criteria of who you would like to have for a client. Doing an interview with them and really hearing what they have to say. And a new strategy that I just learned was to transcribe those conversations and then use the words in those transcriptions and pull the specific words out that you see them use over and over again. And the words that they actually say about themselves, like I am, or I love, I hate, pulling those pieces out and then repurpose it directly into your social media. Do a post about like, I hate it when XYZ, or we know you hate it when XYZ. And then you build a story off of that. So really understanding the avatar and then knowing what your voice is, speaking in the same language as that avatar, it just makes the whole process so much more seamless, and it makes the experience more seamless for your potential clients when they're on your social media and in your content.
Awesome. Always love some firsthand research. Marleen, you had something to add on as well.
Yeah, just a quick little side note is do remember that you have two different things here. You have voice, which is how you speak to the audience, but you have tone as well. You speak different to your boss than to your girlfriend. So that is also how it should be across different platforms on social media. LinkedIn, you're gonna have a different voice than on, for example, your Instagram platform. Just something that you should be aware of when you're creating content.
Great. And then Shelley, going back to you with the digital voice. So obviously you guys have told us some things about what to do, some key pointers, but what are common misconceptions that people have about the digital voice, and how can we combat these and actually communicate effectively? So you're not just kind of throwing words out there. What would you suggest for that?
Well, I mean, we can go back to the misconception of you need to serve everybody, right? You're afraid to cut people out, exclude people. Like if you only speak to this one avatar, you're not going to attract any more clients, and you are really cutting off your potential for income. And it's just not true. You're actually going to find that you do way better when you really hone in and laser focus. So combat that. Well, just get focused on who your avatar is, right? And like I was saying, know them, interview them, listen to them, visit their social media. What are they sharing? What are they posting? Listen to their videos, listen to their language. And then again, put that into your content and reuse it over and over again.
Great. And when I think of digital voice as well, the question comes up of how often should I be talking to your target market, whether it be with kind of your website, with updates, social media, whether it be posts or sharing images. So is there kind of a perfect number, or does it depend on your business and kind of what you have going on of how often you should be communicating?
Well, on social media, you could post every day. Like that would be ideal. If you could post every day, maybe even potentially a couple times a day, depending on what platform you're on and what parts of the platform you're using. that would be ideal. And it doesn't have to be that way. You do what works for you. Just be present and be consistent. I usually say like 2 to 3 times a week at least. But if you can get in more than that, even better. But the key is be there, be engaged, and be consistent. So every week on Monday and every week on Tuesday, and keep the messaging consistent across the board.
Perfect. And then
Okay. Do you mind if I just backpack on that for a second?
go ahead, Laura.
And just, just to change it up, because I know sometimes we all struggle with trying to think of ideas. So if you have a couple things that you're kind of cycling through, so, one is promoting your product, one is maybe an educational piece, and then one is maybe just a story or a way to emotionally connect. If you kind of pinpoint what is working on your social media, like just plan those out and cycle through. You don't have to come up with you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. So just, it kind of takes some of the pressure off if you sort of know.
Perfect. And then Anthony.
Yeah, so I think just to add to that as well is I think Shelley hit on a really important part, which is consistency. But I think to add to that, goals and objectives matter. So if you understand and know the goals that you're trying to get to, whether it's X amount of followers or ultimately X amount of revenue within a certain time period, understanding those goals are going to go a long way into understanding how much you need to engage online, whether that's through ads or social media or blogging or whatever the case is. So I think that's a really big piece that I think a lot of people often forget is what am I trying to do, and put a timetable on it. Don't just say, oh, I want to get 4,000 or 10,000 followers. Put a timetable, make it realistic, make it attainable, and then talk to the digital service squad or whoever you want to talk to about it in terms of how does that work? How does that all make sense? I think we're going to get into a little bit after when we're talking about numbers and things, but understanding, how many followers do you need to convert a sale? How much traffic do you need to convert a sale? These are also important pieces to understanding how realistic these goals are going to be and how soon you might be able to get there.
Great. And we do have a question in the chat. So how frequently should you do a thorough review of your avatar, especially if you have a couple as well, just making sure that it's still hitting home, you're still attracting the right target market. Anthony, go ahead.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I'll give you kind of a background of my company on this one. We actually just reviewed our avatar. So we created our first ones about 1.5 years, 2 years ago. And ultimately we thought that we wanted to go after a certain type of person and a certain type of avatar. As we started going after those types of people, we started realizing, okay, it's kind of like this person, but not quite that person. So how do we make adjustments and things like that? At one point we had 3 different avatars. We've narrowed it down to 2 as well. So, you start to kind of reevaluate as you start to reassess the data and the numbers and what you're actually doing in terms of business. So, I'd probably say give it at least 6 months to a year of trying to target that particular avatar, seeing if they're attracted to what it is that you're doing, or 2, whether you actually enjoy working with that type of person or not. It does go both ways, right? You have to enjoy working with them. They have to enjoy working with you. So they might enjoy working with you, but if you don't enjoy working with them, then maybe it's a tweak to that particular avatar or a complete shift in general as well. So yeah, I mean, the answer is always it depends, but I would say assess it for about 6 months to a year, and that usually will kind of give you some idea on whether that avatar is making sense for you.
Perfect. And then Marleen, you wanted to add on.
Yeah, that is correct. So again, like totally wholeheartedly agree with Anthony. I would say, again, I'm a branding person. I'm from marketing background, right? So we normally work data again that you can track, right? So if you review that once a year, that is fantastic, minimum. Now it's also a good change if you have a huge change in your company, for example, a different product launch, then you revisit the avatar and you make sure, or after these big changes, the avatars that we have created, do they still match? Or is there now a different segment that we have to attract? And those are questions that you will continually think about while your business evolves Pivot is a very big word from last year. A lot of companies have pivoted due to the pandemic, etc. Don't want to get into that too much, but that is when you go back and you go look at your avatar and see if it's still current to your business model and your goals and your milestones.
Great. And then this is almost a follow-up question to that. So do you follow your avatar as they age, or hope that they remain loyal but stick with your original kind of age profile? Go ahead, Marleen.
That's all in your value proposition, right? Like, what is this value that you are created? How are you going to measure it? I always love the keg as an example, because every true Canadian knows the keg. They never give discounts. You go there for your steak, you know what you're going to get. Your budget increases, but it's still that same clientele, right? Like, I go at 20s with my beautiful dates, and now I'm married at 30s, 40s, 50s. So they grow with. Look at your brand value. What is the proposition that you want? What is the added emotional value? And see where they sit within that bracket.
Perfect. And then Anthony, did you have something to add on as well?
Yeah, I think Marleen more or less summed it up, but I think the piece there that I was going to say was that the problem that you solve for the customer is what matters. So the demographic sure could be targeted, but depending on it also depends on what you do. So depending on what you do, the problem that you solve for that person and that demographic may not be the same problem that you solve for them as they get older, or as time shifts. So understanding the problem you solve is probably the better answer in terms of how the customer will work with you as time moves forward. So I think that would be kind of, I mean, loyalty is going to be huge, obviously, if they like your product. Whether they continue to use it, they would certainly recommend it to other people that are in the demographic that it's more likely to help. So you'll certainly gain loyalty that way. I mean, there's definitely a certain spectrum of people. And when you're looking at, say, your sales funnel, or you're looking at the customer journey, ultimately you want to get your customers to be someone that refers you, but even more importantly, you want to get someone who's an advocate for you, someone that will wear your brand and advocate for you. So if they're doing that, whether they're buying from you or not, because maybe they've shifted, they're certainly going to be there to recommend and push your business forward.
Great. So that's just kind of a great transition as Marleen, did you have one more comment to add on it? No, you're good. All right. So with that comment around kind of age and demographics, it leads us into the transition of how do you find the right traffic and knowing your leads, and really communicating with those avatars. So obviously social media is so huge now, and there are so many platforms, but each platform might not be right for your type of target market. So Shelly, what are the demographics of really each social media platform?
That's a great question. And like you said, it's really good to know so that one, you can have the right digital voice on that platform, but then also you can choose the right platform to focus on, because you don't need to be on every platform. You just need to be where your ideal client is, where your avatar is hanging out. So obviously, let's start with Facebook. It's the big one. That's where a lot of people are, 25 to 34 years old, and basically split down the middle for female and male, but a little bit more on the male side. But there's been a big influx of boomers. So that's where you're going to find a lot of the older generation. You will find the millennials and the younger ones on there, but if they're going to choose probably Instagram or TikTok to go hang out on more often, but they are on Facebook still. And just because of the sheer size of Facebook, it is a good idea to be posting there, even if it's just cross-posting. So just reusing what you're using on your main social media platform. Instagram, same age range, 25 to 34 years old, more predominantly female, but basically split down the middle. And it is that younger age group, millennials and down. And like I was saying, those age groups choose Instagram over Facebook if they can. Twitter is a little bit more of an older age group. It's 30 to 49 years old and more predominantly male. And that is the platform that people usually use to go find out breaking news or discuss important events and have those conversations in those short little bites, right? LinkedIn. We know LinkedIn as the business platform. So that's where you're going to find your business experts, people who are looking to network for business purposes. Usually they're a little bit more highly educated and on the 46 to 55 age range and more on the male side. And then we've got TikTok, the baby in the bunch of the social medias. And of course, that's the younger age group. It's 18 to 25 years old and more predominantly female. And it's just young people out there having fun and entertaining each other, really. But a lot of people do use it for business purposes as well.
Perfect. And that kind of leads to kind of an offshoot question of obviously when you think of TikTok, you think of the dancing and the lip syncing videos. Do you need, as a business owner, to kind of take advantage of that, or of the Reels trend, to be able to use Instagram and TikTok?
Okay. So it is a great trend. You do want to hop on it, at least on Instagram for Reels. If your audience isn't on TikTok, then don't worry about it. But get on the Instagram Reels, but you don't necessarily need to dance and point. If that's not who you are, and if you aren't going to look back at that in 5 years and you're going to feel embarrassed by that, like, or is that how you would normally have shown up on social media, then don't do it. Okay, you want to stay true to your brand, but it's fun. If you do those trendy things like dancing, pointing, lip syncing to captions, you might go viral. It's potential because those are trending. But again, stay true to who you are, who your business is, and like do the reverse look from 5 years from now. If you look back and you don't feel good about that, don't do it. But definitely do use it. Use trending music. You can just speak and talk about your product or about you. You do want to give value. You want to give value, or you want to entertain, or shock and awe, right? Like something that's going to capture their attention. But you can use the trending audio. You can find out what the trending music is and use it in the background. So you just turn the volume down on the audio and use it in the background while you speak. And that will help the algorithm pick up your post and push it farther. Also, when people are hearing the music that they're used to hearing, they've heard it 100 times on like 50,000 other reels, they're more likely to stop because they recognize it. It's comforting, right? To hear something familiar. So taking advantage of those popular soundtracks and using transitions and stuff like that. If you're comfortable with it, if you want to spend the time editing the reels and stuff, then definitely do it. But just ask yourself, where's your time best spent? And would you do that dance on social media if reels weren't a thing?
Perfect. I definitely give kudos to anyone that can learn any of those TikTok dances. I'm not sure about my coordination level anymore. But going back into the numbers and kind of the metrics of it, Anthony, how do you measure the success of your website? So I know you guys had briefly talked about Google Analytics and goals and whatnot, but are there any concrete measurements that someone could take from it?
Yeah, so again, as always, the answer is always it depends. It depends on what the objectives are and what the goals are. It depends, like the websites can be anywhere from, lead generating websites, e-commerce sites, promotional, like you're promoting an item site. I don't know if any of you have seen some of the cool stuff they say like Nike does with some promotional sites. So it always depends on the objectives, but I think today we'll kind of just hit on kind of leads and e-commerce. A lot of people will generally talk about having analytics and measuring how much traffic you get or what your bounce rate is and things like that. And those are certainly important, but they don't tell you how necessarily what leads are converting. And for me, that is always the most important metric. So sure, it's important to know that traffic, but it's important to know how much traffic do you need to generate a lead and how many leads need to come through to generate a sale. So there is a little bit of tracking that I always recommend that people do on the back end for their business as well, whether it's through a CRM or just an Excel spreadsheet. But keeping track of the leads that come through and keeping track of whether you made that sale or not and how much that sale was. By doing that, you can start to match the who's actually converting and who's actually coming in with the avatar that you've created to see, is there a direct correlation? Is there, maybe I'm actually hitting someone the complete opposite of what I originally thought I wanted to hit? And then you can make adjustments from there. Do you adjust your avatar, or do you adjust how you go about things to target the avatar you actually want to go after? So for me, it's more than just your analytics and your traffic. It is more about, okay, now we need to track your leads. Now we need to kind of have some hands-on stuff. It's great to have automated data tracking through analytics and Google Search Console and all these other tools, but it's what you do with that information to now say, okay, I had 10 leads in the month of November, and of that, I had 1,000 people hit my website. Now you know roughly you might need 1,000 people to hit your website before you can generate 10 leads. And that's important because now you can learn how to scale your business. Now you can learn how to move up. Now you can know, oh, I need to do more on social media to drive more traffic, and I need to do it on these platforms to do it, or I need to run ads to drive more traffic to the site to again, increase that traffic and generate those leads. So I think that's where it gets really, really important. And then, like I said, drawing it back to your avatar at that point, identify who those leads are, identify who those sales are, and does it make sense with the avatar you've initially created?
Great. And you had kind of briefly touched on this, but just a follow-up question. How much traffic do you need to convert into a sale on average? So that's always the question of everyone wants to know, all right, well, I have those numbers and I have those people, but sales is ultimately the thing that I'm trying to aim for.
Yeah, so that one is a big, it depends. It really, really depends on the type of business that you have. It depends on the market that you're serving. You know, how many people are in that market that you're serving. So hypothetically, if you're local and you're brick and mortar and you're solely focused on Barrie and Simcoe County, then you know you do have a finite number of people that you can really target, unless you obviously have some travelers that come in and out of the city. But you know, when you look at the population of that, it kind of, okay, how much of that market share can I actually take? So and that's kind of one angle of it. But now when you start dealing with, are you B2C or are you B2B, it completely shifts everything. So for example, a business like what I do in terms of design and branding and web, I would have a completely different metric for traffic to sales as opposed to a flower shop or something like that, because now you're selling direct to the consumer. Your prices are significantly less than what I charge for a service. So turnover and sales would be significantly more, hypothetically. So it really, really depends. And that's where, again, kind of going back to my whole bio and my intro, is understanding what the unique problems are and the unique challenges that you're facing and the objectives that you're trying to get to, and then kind of assessing from there. So unfortunately, it's one of those ones that needs a lot more information.
Great. And then Shelley, so Anthony talked a little bit about measuring the success with websites, but the other big thing is, how do you measure success with social media, especially when you have so many different platforms that you might be utilizing?
Yeah, so, and there's so many vanity metrics that go with social media, right? How many likes did I get? How many comments did I get? Now, those are important because engagement helps your post go further and more people to see it, and then that increases your reach, right? But they really are vanity metrics because it doesn't necessarily say how many sales you got. So some things you can, like, obviously there's insights and analytics on all the platforms. So understanding your audience, you can find out what your, like, male, female, the age, when they're when they're active on the platform. You can look at all those in the insights inside of Facebook, Instagram, and similar platforms. But some things you can do to just see the conversion from social media to the sale is, one, Google Analytics. So putting the things in place on your website so that you know where the leads are coming from, and it will tell you which platform they came from. But if you have like a lead magnet, right? You're giving away a free resource, a PDF, a free training, something like that. What you can do is you can create a different landing page for each platform. Just give it the same URL and you just put a -FB for Facebook at the end of the URL. So same URL, just a little bit different. And you share it to the individual platforms. And then you can see how many people are converting through each landing page. So that helps with that. But definitely knowing your numbers is important. Keeping an eye on how many likes you're getting, how many comments you're getting, that definitely helps you to know what posts and content is working with your followers. If you're not getting an engagement, like I said, then you want to reassess maybe your avatar or how you're speaking to your avatar. And yeah, definitely basically just use the insights in your in the platforms and keep an eye on your analytics on your website and know where they came from. You can ask in store, how did you hear about us? And keep track of it that way as well.
Go ahead, Laura.
Another cool feature on Instagram too is you can actually do a poll on Instagram. Like you can ask your target market, what do you want to see? What do you enjoy? Like you can actually ask them. So definitely using those features as well is so helpful. It's like on the ground research, you know?
Yeah, so many different things to take advantage of when you look at social media. And as well, our Digital Main Street, our digital service squad is here to help. But also, you can even just YouTube. There's so many helpful videos out there now that are quick and easy, 2 5-minute tutorials that will show you some, if it's Google Analytics you're looking at, if it's how to create a reel on Instagram. There's so many of those resources that are out there. So definitely take advantage of that. Anthony, you wanted to add on as well.
Yeah, just a little piece as well. I remember there was an offline conversation that Shelly and I were having about in terms of tracking metrics on social media. And I think a lot of people try to look at how many followers am I getting? And that doesn't necessarily relate to success, because the followers that you're getting could be followers that are not your ideal customer. They're not the ones buying, right? So it's not necessarily about how many followers you get. It's about getting the right followers, people that are actually going to engage with your content, that are potentially going to be actual customers of your business. And there was a metric that she kind of told me about, and it was an interesting way to look at social media. And it certainly changed the way I kind of started looking at things, in that try to treat it like in-person networking. So rather than looking at how many followers you have, or of course, obviously how much comments and likes and like that are important, but think about how many conversations you're starting. So how many times are you messaging people in DMs and having legitimate conversations with people? It doesn't necessarily even have to be about business, but it has to be about relationship building. And if you can start to build relationships, we all know that business is building relationships, and people do business with people that they trust. So using that platform as an extension of how we're also comfortable in-person networking, and using social media like that will, I think, change the game in how you do networking in general. So that was a big piece that I took away from an offline conversation I had with her, is look at the conversations that you have as a really important piece of metric.
That's awesome. That's a great tip. So just as we finish off now with the last kind of 5-6 minutes, if anyone has any questions that they'd like to put into the chat, feel free into the Q&A. We would be more than happy to answer those. But just a final question for our panelists here. What do you predict will happen in the next 5 to 10 years? Obviously, the digital world is constantly changing, but do you see any kind of trends that small business owners should be aware of, or what do you think is on the way for us? Go ahead, Marleen.
So I am loving the metaverse right now, if you haven't heard about that, and the rise of crypto, and how is this going to impact small, medium enterprises that sometimes have to wait X amount of time before we get paid. And you're always playing with that numbers game. And I just think the growth of technology and the research and design, the robotics, I think that's something every small and medium enterprise business owner should be aware of, track it, and also always in the back of your mind, think about, how can I utilize this? How can I tap into this? How can I give Sue the better experience by implementing X, Y, Z? So I think it's a great time to be alive. It's so exciting. And just reading about this and all these YouTubers like speculating, being on top of it, being a lifelong learner, be passionate and don't give up. Just keep on going and yeah, tap into these new resources that are available to us right now.
Awesome. Anthony, go ahead. You just unmuted yourself.
Yeah, I think that customer experience is getting more and more important every single day. People don't just want to do business, they want to build relationships. They want to connect emotionally with people. They want to be loyal to specific brands. So I think, working on building brand trust within your brand, building satisfaction within your brand, that to the point where people are advocating for you, I think is going to be a massive, massive piece of what we kind of see moving forward. I think gone are the days of people doing hard sales and trying to force products down people's throats. And I think it's more about, the aspect of serving. And so I think providing education and genuinely wanting to help. Now I know everybody says that I genuinely want to help. I feel I want to help, but there's ways of actively listening and understanding and really wanting to understand someone's challenge, not just sell them your product. And I think you're starting to see a big shift in and how business is done that way, and how people are starting to kind of reject your traditional typical sales. So I think that goes a long way even into your social media, into your website and things like that. People are done, I think, with hearing words like we're the best, we're the fastest, we're the cheapest. And it gets more into, again, defining what the personality is, what is the problem that you're actually solving, and how are you going to solve that for your customer. People are very intrigued in trying to understand those pieces. And the other piece that I touched on before a million times, and I know I haven't really touched on today, but understanding what drives you to run your business, what your why is a huge piece as well. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. So
Great. And then Laura.
One thing I do notice a lot right now is we're really shifting away from trying to come across as perfect. I notice a lot of companies, whether they're small business or really large companies, are now participating. They're making fools of themselves. They're making fun of themselves. Like if you look at Amazon or like airlines on TikTok, they're getting in on the trends and they're making fun of themselves. There was a song that was going viral called Jeffrey Bezos, and Amazon used it. And the whole thing is making fun of Amazon. So I think it's just interesting that we're bringing humanity back into advertisement. And I think that you shouldn't be afraid to come across as human. Obviously, you don't want to air all of your dirty laundry out there. You want to keep some mystery, but definitely don't be afraid to make fun of yourself or touch on pain points or seem human.
Great. And go ahead, Shelley.
I was just going to say, as we've seen in the past couple of years, video is huge and it's not going anywhere. So if you haven't gotten comfortable with video, get comfortable. Start adding a video into your weekly content for your social media, whether it's a reel or just going live or recording it and posting it. I think video, it's here to stay because people like to connect. Like we've been talking about that in the last little bit. People are human. They want to see you. They want to see who you are, and they want to see it raw, like Laura was saying. And the other piece that I think is the trend for the future is human connection. So we've kind of come out of this era of automation. Like how can you automate your posts? How can you automate the phone being answered? How can you, right? Surprise people and be the real human on the other end. Surprise people and send them a message and actually not be a bot. Surprise people and ask them how their day is. So I think that is the biggest trend to go forward with the future. It's not digital, it's human.
Great. Well, thank you so much to all of our panelists. For everyone that attended, thank you for logging on. I've included a link to Digital Main Street. If you do have a brick and mortar location and you are interested on working with the Digital Service Squad, please log onto the website and sign up through their portal. If you have any questions for the Digital Service Squad, or you're looking at getting connected with them, please just email the Small Business Center and we'd be more than happy to create an e-intro for you. But other than that, to stay tuned to the Small Business Center's event page for any upcoming workshops and sessions. And have a great day, everyone. We hope to talk to you soon.
Thank you for joining us, everyone.
Thank
Bye
you.
now.